There she is. Let me
I'm
unmute you.
here.
Okay, there you are.
I'm here.
Hello.
How are you doing, darling?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I couldn't be better.
Awesome. Well, hey, for everybody that's jumping on right now, I see a lot of people have jumped on here in the last couple. We're going to try to, if we have a little bit of time at the very end, open it up for maybe one or two questions from y'all. So if you're on right now, start thinking of some. If we have time at the end, we'll go ahead and do that. But I do want to, it's 2:00, so I want to go ahead and introduce y'all. We have a very special guest. We're so thankful she's taken some time out of her day to come speak with us. In 2018, she was inducted into the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. She is the author of A Joy-Filled Life, Lessons from a Tenant Farmer's Daughter, and she was the very first CEO of Keller Williams. Everyone, welcome Mo Anderson. Mo, how are you?
Hi, everybody. I'm so great, even though I'm old as dirt. I am great. Just great. I'm so excited and honored that you would invite me.
Well, we are honored to have you. And hey, I want to be respectful of your time. So you mind if we just jump right into it?
You just ask me anything you want, except
Okay,
how much
perfect.
I weigh. You can't ask me that.
I won't, I promise. Okay, so how many, including this one right now, about how many shifts do you think you've been a part of?
Oh my word, I've been a part of so many shifts, I can't even count them all. Because you see, I grew up in the oil patch, and the oil patch is kind of Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, Louisiana, and all that business is boom and bust, boom and bust. And it affects our local economy. So I've probably been through 40 shifts in my life.
Wow.
Including the real estate ones.
Yeah. So including all of those, you've overcome countless obstacles in your life.
I have just learned how to rise above adversity. I mean,
yeah, you always seem to come out stronger.
I grew up in poverty. I, was a farm kid on a tenant farmer's farm, and tenant farming is pretty rough. And listen, if I didn't have adversity about every other month, I would think something was wrong. So I've learned a lot through the years about how you get out of it.
Definitely.
I mean, how you rise above it.
You always seem to come out stronger. And so some of our agents, some of them may be newer to the business, and they may be facing their first or their second huge challenge of building their real estate business. This may be for a lot of them if they joined after the 2008, 2009, right around that time. This may be the first huge battle that they're facing. And so is there one thing that you think that they could focus on that would make sure that, just like you, they come out on top? We want them to come out of this stronger.
Well, I'll tell you what, in every single adversity that hits you, I don't care what it is, whether it's a coronavirus pandemic, or it's a tornado that hits your community, or it's a marriage problem, or it's a kid that's, being crazy and you're going crazy because you're the parent. No matter what it is, the first thing that you experience is fear. If you're honest, the first thing you experience is fear. Now, as much adversity as I've had in my life, when coronavirus hit, I was gripped and they locked us down, because this is so different. And all the economy crashes I've lived through in the oil patch, we were never locked down. And But let me tell you what my fear was. It gripped me for 4 days. And I'm usually whip fear out of my head, in a couple of hours. But I was gripped with fear for 4 solid days when coronavirus hit. And here was my fear. I own 3 offices. I have ownership in 3 offices. I'm like the majority stockholder. I own a region, no investors, just me. I own the region. And I own a chunk of Keller Williams Realty International. Well, when I saw they were killing the economy and they were locking us down, I knew that wasn't really real wonderful for our business. And I began to have fear that I hadn't saved enough money to be able to pay for all of the cash calls that might come. The cash calls in the market center, the cash calls in the region. And let me tell you what, folks, when you get a cash call from an international company, I want you to know it's in the millions. It's not in the thousands.
Wow.
And so fear just gripped me. Well, you have to get rid of fear. That's the first thing you have to do to rise above adversity, because creativity flourishes in the absence of fear. Write that down. Creativity flourishes in the absence of fear. And I knew if I could get rid of my fear, then I could be creative in figuring out how I could come up with the money if I needed to. Because at that point in time, we didn't know if we were going to have any business or no business at all. Same thing you were thinking when this thing hit. So what I did is I leaned into my faith, which is what I do. I mean, there are many things you can do, but I choose to lean into my faith. And when I was a little kid in Sunday school, my teacher made me memorize a verse. And I'd forgotten where it was, but one of the agents on one of my Zoom calls told me where it was. So I can tell you, it's 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 4. And it says, "For God has not given you a spirit of fear." That's the first line. "For God has not given you a spirit of fear." Well, let me tell you what, folks. I had a spirit of fear, and it didn't come from God, so I wonder where it came from. Interesting, huh? And then the next line says, God has given you a spirit of power, love, and a sound mind. Well, power means confidence. It means energy. When you have energy and you have confidence and you pick up that phone and you make your calls and you know what you're going to say, it just gives you that power. The phone isn't very heavy. When you don't know what you're going to say, the phone's really heavy and you don't want to pick it up. So he's given us the spirit of power, of love. We all know what that is, and a sound mind. Well, a sound mind has everything to do with mindset. And in Quantum Leap, in the first version that came out, it had the 4 truths about mindset. And when they rewrote the book, they left them out, and I'm gonna go back and make them put them back in again. But I want to give you those 4 truths.
Please.
Truth number one. When you change your mind, you change your circumstances. Now, let me give you an actual example. During the pandemic, we had a Michigan agent who believed that he couldn't get any business in the pandemic, and fear gripped his heart, just like it did all of us for a while. And he finally worked through that fear, and he changed his mind, and he said, you know what, I'm going to try to get 10 listings this week just by calling my sphere of influence. I'm going to tell them all about how great the interest rates are. If you want to move up, now's the time to consider it. If you want to move down, now's the time, blah, 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 blah. He changed his mind, and his circumstances changed. You know how many listings he got that week?
How many?
11.
Wow.
11. And he didn't have to walk into any of the houses he listed. It was all done by virtual stuff. Vanessa Pollock, last week, she's in New Jersey. She got 9 listings last week because she changed her mind, and it changed her circumstances. Truth number 2, if you believe something is true, if you believe something is true, it creates adrenaline and changes your senses. In Vanessa's case, she believed it was true that she could get a lot of listings in Manhattan because it's so bad there. Mm-hmm. So she began to call all of her contacts in Manhattan, and every one of them said, we want to get out of here. We want to move to an area that is not so densely, where we're not stacked on top of each other. 9 listings in 1 week. Now, I said to her, who's going to buy them? She said, there will be people who will want to buy them. See, her mind, she changed her mind, and it changed her circumstances. Let me tell you about one more agent. He changed his mind, and one day he thought, when he saw a little 3-bed, 2-bath home come into the listing inventory in his market center, he thought to himself, I believe grandparents should buy 1 rental if they have young grandchildren. And then when the child grows up, sell the rental, put the money in the college fund. He gets on the phone. Now, he had already called his sphere of influence and loved on him. He had already done the love call or the care call, whatever you call it. And this time he loved on him a little bit. And then he said, we have this darling, this really cute as a bug, 2-bedroom, 3-bath house that would be the best rental for some grandparents. Do you know any grandparents who have young grandchildren and they might like to own just 1 rental? I've got the perfect house. And this woman, the first call he made, gave him her parents' name, and she gave him her husband's parents' name, and he ended up selling 2.
Look at that.
2 houses, really small, just really neat little rental properties. He is doing more business now than he has done than he did before coronavirus. And he's doing it all through his sphere of influence. And he never asks them if they're interested. He says, who do you know? Or do you know any grandparents? Another guy is doing the same thing, encouraging people if they know of anybody who might need more cash to get through the pandemic. Well, the first call he made, the woman said, yeah, my nephew, and last night I was talking to my neighbor on the phone, and they're talking about refinancing so they can get more cash. He did that with his sphere, and he used that checklist. There's some kind of a checklist out there that shows the steps of a refinance, and it was published by Keller Mortgage. And I guess it's really good because a bunch of agents are using it. And usually a loan officer talks them through the steps, but he is talking them through the steps just using that sheet. Then he's referring to Keller Mortgage. And I don't know if he gets a referral fee. I have no clue what the deal is. But anyway, you know, it's going gangbusters for him. So he believed something to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Truth number 3, when the alligators are nipping at your feet, the hardest thing in the world to do is have a positive mindset. When the alligators are nipping at your feet, the hardest thing in the world to do is have a positive mindset. Now, I want you to know that in the late 80s, OPEC lowered oil to $8 a barrel, and it caused the economy to crash in the oil patch, just like it has crashed in coronavirus, except we weren't locked down. We didn't lose all of our freedoms.
Yeah.
We were, you know, in this, we're locked down because of it being so contagious.
Mm-hmm.
I would tell, and we lost everything. We lost the money we had saved, you know, running our real successful real estate business. We lost our investments. It was horrible because the economy was so bad, like it is now. It was just horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept telling my friends, we're going to build back and be bigger and better than before. And they all looked at me like I was a crazy woman, like I was stupid and dumb, and they rolled their eyes, and I just didn't care. I just let them roll their eyes. And I kept saying it, and the first 1,000 times I said it, I didn't believe it. Do you hear me?
Uh-huh.
I kept saying it until I finally believed it. I think it was on the 2000th time, I'm not sure. And one morning I woke up and I said, Richard, we are going to build back, and it is going to be better than before. And he rolled his eyes and thought, she's a crazy woman. I want you to know, 2 weeks after I said that to Richard Anderson, a man by the name of Gary Keller called me. He'd heard about me, and he made a cold call and called me.
Wow.
And he began to call me 4 times a week for about 2 months. And then he said to me one day when he called me, he said, Mo, I'm thinking about taking the company across the U.S. I want to know if you would come to Austin to a 3-day meeting, and because I've hired a consulting company. Would you come? Well, in my head, I'm going, I'm broke. I don't even have enough money to buy an airplane ticket. I don't have enough money to buy a hotel room. I don't have enough money for food. I don't even have enough money to buy the stupid gasoline to drive to Austin. That's how broke we were.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was the late 80s. Actually, it was 1990 is when it really happened. And I just thought, I can't go. But out of my mouth, I said, I will be there. I hung up that phone and I thought, I've really got myself in a pickle because I don't know how I'm going to go. I went to the mailbox that afternoon, and in the mail was a credit card. You know how you get these credit cards that you activate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I thought, oh, goody, I got a credit card that those people don't know yet I'm broke. This is great. I activated that sucker. I got me a hotel room in Austin. I got me an airfare to go to Austin, and I had a credit card to be able to pay for food. Now, my mother would have spanked me if she'd been alive because she doesn't believe in doing that kind of stuff. But you get the point. My back was in the corner, and I had enough of a positive mindset that I could recognize the possible opportunity in the adversity. And when your mind is filled with fear, you never see the opportunity because you're paralyzed and you can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
So the rest is history. And I went to that meeting, and at the end of the first day, I had learned about the ALC model. I had learned about the profit share model. I knew they would work because in the company I sold to Merrill Lynch, I profit shared 2 levels, and I also had an ALC, but I didn't call it an ALC. And then when I saw Gary's economic model, I thought my economic model is stupid and his is brilliant. I want to hook up with this guy. So I called my husband that night and I said, Richard, are you sitting down? Because I have something to tell you. And he always knows what that means. It means the crazy lady's going to do something crazy again. So I said to him on the phone, I said, I'm going to open Oklahoma as the first Keller Williams region outside the state of Texas. Gary Keller doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to tell him in the morning. So Gary comes to the meeting on the second day, and I tell him that I want to do a region, and he said, Mo, I can't do a region. I don't even have a document. I said, that doesn't matter. Just give me permission to use your models and systems, and I'll go build the region in Oklahoma. And we'll do the document later, because Oklahoma is not a registration state. All I need is your permission. I stick out my hand to shake hands with him, and he pauses. Then he grabs my hand, shakes my hand, and said, okay. And I say, my daddy taught me that a handshake is more precious than a contract. Don't forget that, Gary. And so we go into business together on a handshake. And then I come and build Oklahoma, and he is just astounded at what we do in Oklahoma. And the rest is history. And then 3 years later is when he asked me to come and be his partner and help him build Keller Williams. And boy, was that hard.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, where am I?
You're on 4. The 4th.
I'm ready for 4. Now, see, the alligators that nip at your feet could be anything. Like, I don't have enough money to get through the pandemic. Or it could be, I am so sick of being cooped up in this house. I wish my spouse would go to the post office for 3 hours to give me some space. Or maybe you're a young mother and you have to teach your kids. Every morning I get up and say, Lord, thank you, my kids are grown. My grandkids are grown. I don't have to teach. And you're just overwhelmed because you have to cook 3 meals a day. And oh my goodness, you're just overwhelmed. Whatever the alligator is, just remember when it nips at you, like it does, so to speak, the hardest thing to do is to have a proper mindset. But there's only really 2 ways to get rid of the fear, and that is to affirm something. Like I affirmed the Bible verse in coronavirus, and then in the oil patch when we lost everything, I affirmed we will build bigger, than before. Mm-hmm. And you have to say it till you finally believe it, and it may take 5,000 times. I don't care how many times it takes. You keep saying
that. Uh-huh.
Now, truth number 4. Your mind is a part of you. Like your ears are a part of you, your nose is a part of you, your feet are a part of you. Your mind is a part of you. And it should be your servant, not your master. Now, for 4 days in coronavirus, my mind was my master and it was ruling me. I couldn't sleep at night. All I could think of was I don't have enough money for 3 market centers a region and to make cash calls at, also at the national level.
Mm-hmm.
So finally on the 5th day, and I'm usually pretty good about kicking fear out real fast, and on the 5th day, I just slapped my head and I said, mind, you're not going to rule me anymore. You're supposed to be my servant, not my master. I get to pick what's up here. You don't get to pick what's up here. I do. Because I am your master. You are my servant. Do you get that point?
Definitely. Definitely.
Now, most of you went to bold class. You've been to bold and you've done that silly little exercise. If you act enthusiastic, you will be enthusiastic. How many of you have done that? Very many of you.
Yeah, a lot of hands
you
raised.
did it and you thought probably it was the dumbest thing you've ever done. Crazy little saying. Well, I want to tell you the backstory on that little phrase. When I married Richard, we will have been married 63 years in August. Right after I married him, he developed severe depression. And if you've never lived with anybody with depression or you've never had depression yourself, you can't imagine how dark and insidious that disease is. It's awful. And his depression lasted for 15 years. And then they found out what was wrong with him and they fixed it and he's been great ever since. But it was really bad. And he barely could work. When he came home at night, he was totally exhausted because it had taken every ounce of energy in his body to get through the day. We had one car and he drove it to work. So that meant I walked to the school where I was teaching. And I would leave the house and cry all the way to the school because it was kind of, my only chance to be alone because I hurt so bad on the inside. I was overwhelmed. I didn't know how to help him. I didn't know how to pay all the bills, cook all the meals, work full time, take care of the kids, blah, blah, blah. And it was about 5 years into the depression. So for 5 years, I'd been walking to school, crying. But when I got a block away from the school, I would wipe my eyes. My hand would touch the handle of the door. And the minute my hand touched the handle, I would act like I was okay. I would act enthusiastic. And I pretended to be enthusiastic for 5 years. One day, I usually got to school at 7:30. And so one day I was busy in my classroom and I looked at the clock in the back of the wall and it said 10 a.m. And I had the biggest aha I've ever had in my life. And it was, you know what? I am enthusiastic. I feel the adrenaline in my body. I feel the positivity in my head. I feel the excitement of what I'm doing with my kids. I have all this energy. I was enthusiastic. And I'd heard of that little phrase in the Dale Carnegie classes where I heard of it. And I experienced its truth. The issue is I was willing to act that way until it became a reality. I was willing to say we're going to build back bigger than before until I finally realized it was really going to be true. And what happens to most people is they'll act enthusiastic for 10 minutes, and it takes so much energy to act like you're something when you're really not, because I was really about as enthusiastic as a dead slug. I mean, I had no enthusiasm, but I acted like it. And I've never had acting lessons. I just did the best I could to act enthusiastic. And it's really, really a true statement. And I made him put it in there because I want you all to realize that there is a way of rising above adversity. And that's how you do it. You get rid of the fear, and then you either affirm or you act. You know, say an affirmation or you act a certain way until you become it, until you believe it. And remember, in every adversity, there is opportunity, because now I can truthfully say the best thing that ever happened to us in our lives was losing all of our money, because it's in the late 80s, because it set up a set of circumstances that caused Gary to hear about me. And if we hadn't lost our money, those circumstances would not have happened.
And if you had not affirmed, you had not been the master of your mind to not let that defeat you, to not let that get you down. That you overcame it, and that's how all that happened.
Well, actually, how it happened was a stranger walks into my little office. I'd never met her before in my life. And she's from Dallas, had been a former partner of Mike Brody and Dick Dillingham. She hears about me, wants to know about my little consulting company that I had after we sold our company to Merrill Lynch. I told her I was headed to Dallas to work with the largest Century 21 broker in the United States. She said, Mo, could I go with you? Here she's a stranger. I didn't even know her. And I said, sure, come go with me. And while we were down there, she said, do we have time to go by an office called Keller something? She said, one of my former agents that Dick and Mike Brody and I had, she's now the manager, and I would just love to say hello to her. So we stopped at that tiny little office in Dallas, Texas, and that woman who was the manager of that Keller Williams office called Gary Keller and said, you have got to meet this woman. He was so lucky to meet me.
That is awesome. So like you're saying, what I'm hearing is for us to get through this, those 4 truths: change your mind, change your circumstances. If you believe something's true, creates adrenaline. The alligators nipping at you, you've got to have a positive mindset, and it's tough. That's what we're going to have to do to beat these challenges. And so one of the things that you were talking about with the alligators.
Did I give you number 4?
Yeah, you did.
Your
mind is part of you. You should be, it should be your servant,
not your master.
And so one of the things you said on number 3, you kind of talked about, you said it the way as, I wish that they would go to the post office for 3 hours so I can have some time to just relax. And I will say our people have been working so hard during this time, and I'm beyond proud of every single one of them for what they've been doing to build their lives. But there is those times that you just need to relax. How important is that to just kind of take a step back and recharge?
Well, it's really important, and I do that 2 ways, and you're really going to laugh at one of the ways I do it.
Okay.
You know, I do it in my quiet time early in the morning, where I read my Bible and I pray. But when I really want to kind of leave the world and just veg out, I get a People magazine. I get a stupid magazine. And I get on the sofa and I read that sucker and I just kind of leave the world. And then I read it and then I think, why did I read that silly thing?
Well, hey, you were just.
But it gets me relaxed and it gets me I forget everything and I just focus on my People magazine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is the dumbest magazine in the world.
I
But
don't
it
know.
works
I've
for
seen
me
some on the grocery
to
store
leave the
counters.
world.
I've
What?
seen some on the grocery store counters that may put People magazine to the test.
Well, I don't read those. The Enquirer and all that.
Yep.
I don't read those. Just People. That's the only one I read.
So I do want to ask, right now with Red Day coming up, and of course I think we all know that Red Day is also it usually falls on Mo's birthday or around the time, so that's coming up as well.
2 days before.
3 days, is it 3 days before this time? 2 days?
My birthday is the 12th and Red Day is the 14th.
Mm-hmm. How do you see Red Day kind of shift? It's important for us to, especially during this time when a lot of our communities are struggling, it's important for us to remain that pillar of service, to remain a face in the community to help them out. How do you see it? Have you seen it already? How do you see it kind of shifting during this?
I see it shifting to a technology Red Day, which is wonderful because you can self-protect, and it gives you a chance to get every single person in your market center involved. And we have never, ever had all of our people involved. We always have some people who are too busy, and I just get so aggravated at them. I want to wring their necks. And frustrated because it doesn't show that they have the spirit of sharing, caring, and giving like that's really a match for Keller Williams. And everybody's doing these creative things, creativity flourishes in the absence of fear. And it's just kind of mind-boggling how creative everybody's being and what they're doing. So it's going to be a wonderful, precious service to the community, whatever it is, or to the people you're doing it for. And you'll get all your people involved. And it'll be through technology. And it's really been fun. I'm just seeing agents have more business sitting in their home on their chair on technology than they do when they get out. And it's just wonderful to kind of watch us transition into a technology company truly for the first time. We called ourselves a technology company, but it wasn't really true because we had too many people that wouldn't learn command. And now everybody's raving about command, and the competitors are so jealous of us, they don't know what to do. And it's just fun to watch. And now we have agents who've discovered they can do more business. So Red Day is going to be probably the most important Red Day we ever do. What are you all doing?
I'm going to take a snippet of that. I'm going to take exactly what you just said. I'm going to send that exact quote to all our agents. That Red Day is going to be the most important thing we do this year. I completely agree.
Well, I think it'll be the most important Red Day we've ever had.
Really?
Because our communities need us now more than ever. See, your sphere of influence needs you now more than ever because they are sick to death of Netflix, and they want to throw up if they have to get back on Facebook one more time. They're tired of Netflix and Facebook, and having a call from their realtor, it highlights their day. And it's kind of interesting because we have a home here in Oklahoma City and we have a home in Austin. And we got caught here on coronavirus, so we just stayed here in Oklahoma City. But I have a florist in Oklahoma City and in Austin, and they both tell me I'm their top customer because I love to send people flowers. And I probably won't do it now. Got to wait and see about these cash calls. And then I have a restaurant where I take all my Keller Williams people here. And then in Austin, I take them all to the the hotel, the old hotel. What is it called? Help me, somebody. Anyway, it's on 6th Street. Or yeah.
I think I've been to it before. I'm
old
gonna Patrick.
hotel.
Patrick might know. Let me see if
And
I can.
anyway,
Stephen Austin. The Stephen Austin?
No, it's not the Stephen Austin. It's that old one. Stephen Austin is a little bit newer. It's supposed to be haunted, and everybody loves to stay there, and they've renovated it, and it's absolutely beautiful. Anyway, I use that restaurant. I use that the restaurant in that hotel. It's lovely. Here I am, the top client of these 4 entities, 2 restaurants and 2 florists. And do you know, not one person has called me, and it ticks me off. And that's exactly how your people feel when you don't call them a lot.
So what's one thing that, like the flowers, let's say we are making that call, that now might not be the best time for all the people in our sphere of influence to be doing business. And sometimes we just need to talk to them and show that we care about them. And so what's something—
Well, love on them, but you know what? If you can always say to them, who do you know? Because there has never been a better time in the history of the world to move up or move down than right now. And then they'll say, well, I don't know. And then the next day somebody calls you and says, well, you know what? I think we want to do that. All you have to say is, who do you know? You know, love on them. How are you? What do you need? Is there anything I can bring you? Are you sick of Netflix? You know, have you watched Poldark? Have you watched Heartland? You know, all those things people are watching. And then you say, who do you know that wants to move up or move down? Because let me tell you what, there's never been a time in the history of the world that's better than this time. It's easy. If they say, don't know anybody, say, remember, if you need something, just give me a call. I love the story of the Orlando agent who did that with her sphere of influence, and she got a bunch of calls back, and one of them was an elderly woman who needed her medication from the drugstore. Well, she discovered that the woman had moved away from her home in Orlando, and that woman had moved to Ocala, and she either forgot it, or I think she referred the move. I'm not sure how the woman got to Ocala. So because the agent was free of fear, her first thought was, I need to find an Uber group in Ocala. So she went on Facebook, found the Uber group, called one of the drivers and said, I have a woman who needs her meds. How far are you from her home? How far are you from the drugstore? That woman had her medication in less than 30 minutes. She thought the agent walked on water. She's going to be moving into an assisted living place when Corona's over. Well, guess who's going to get that listing? The agent. Now, the agent probably will refer it to somebody in Ocala, because Ocala is too far away, really, to be able to do a great job of servicing the listing. But I mean, just call them. Just call them. I'm seeing people get stuff from their sphere of influence they never dreamed they could get. For example, I had surgery on my sinuses, extensive surgery about 4 weeks ago. And I needed distilled water to be able to irrigate the sinuses. And I have to do that, you know, like 3 times a day. And I'll probably have to do it forever. And I ran out of distilled water. I didn't dream anybody would hoard it. And the guy who works for us, he went to every drugstore and every grocery store, and the shelves were totally bare. Totally bare. And a Keller Williams agent found out that I needed distilled water. And she called her sphere of influence and said, I have this elderly friend who needs distilled water. I wish she could have just said, I have this friend. No, I'm kidding. I know I'm old, but I feel young. And so she said, do you happen to have an extra gallon in your supply at your home? It took her 1 full day of driving all over the place to pick up that distilled water. She had to get a pickup to pick it up. And I found 103 gallons of distilled water on my front porch.
Wow.
I called several of my friends that I knew had those Z-Pap machines or whatever they're called, you know, and that they take distilled water. So I've given a little bit of it away, but folks, I've got enough distilled water to get me through August. But isn't that something? Those people in her sphere of influence were so excited to get her a call. It meant they could do something for someone who really needed something. She told them it was for medical purposes. And they just couldn't wait for her to get there and pick up their gallon. They put it on their porch, and she picked it up off of their porch and put it on mine.
She gave them the opportunity. She gave them the opportunity to do something meaningful, and that meant a lot to them.
Something meaningful, and they're just so tired of playing Scrabble and watching stuff on Netflix. I don't mean to be picking on Netflix, but you know what I mean.
Okay, so again, I want to thank you so much. I have, me personally, one more question, and my leadership team.
Alan, hey, excuse me just a minute. Alan Cohn, I love you, wherever you are. It's the Driscoll Hotel. He got it. It's the Driscoll Hotel. I'm looking for Alan. Here he is, but he doesn't have his picture up. Darling, turn your video on. I want to see you.
I think he's got 3 or 4 people there, too.
Come on, Alan, turn your video. Where it says video, click it, and I'll see you. Well, he's not doing it.
They may not have, they may be on
cute, darling little Jessica with a pretty little picture. I want to see her, not her picture.
Y'all better turn your cameras on.
Well, anyway, Alan got it. He says, I love you back, Mo.
So I do have to ask you, my leadership team knows this because I called them immediately when I found it out. I called them and I said, did you guys know that her nickname is the Velvet Hammer? I mean, my jaw hit the floor. The coolest nickname I have ever heard. So I've got to ask, how did you get that? Did someone else come up with that? Where did that come from?
Well, when I moved to Austin to be Gary's CEO and his partner, there were 1,800 agents. There were 45 offices, and I closed 15 of them. That meant we had 30 offices left, and out of the 30 offices, I put pressure on the OPs to de-hire 17 team leaders because they weren't performing at an acceptable level. And then I foreclosed on 5 regions. Now, all that was really hard, and I worked from 6 in the morning until 2 o'clock the next morning because I was in Austin by myself. You know, my kids were all grown and gone, and Richard was finishing a degree, a pharmacy degree, and he couldn't come the first year. So, you know, I didn't sacrifice family those years. I teased Gary Keller and tell him I had this great trophy for what I did in those early years. He says, well, where is it? And I says, it's right here. Can you see it, kind of? Right here. Called a pacemaker. I earned every bit of this pacemaker, let me tell you. And so because I had high standards and I drew a line in the sand and wouldn't let people, I wouldn't cave. No, you're not performing. Well, I'm going to sue you. Well, sue me. You're not performing. The document says blah, 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 blah. And I'm not going to let you lose any more money. You're using your savings, you're digging into your retirement income. My conscience won't let you do that anymore. I respect your money, your capital, more than you do. The answer is no. You either sell this in 30 days, and I'm not sure you have anything you can sell except your stuff. And if you have not sold this in 30 days, we are shutting down this market center because I'm not going to let you lose any more money. And so then somebody said, boy, she is the velvet hammer, because I usually loved on them and then I would deal with the issue and then I'd love on them some more. And you know, like one guy one of the early people who was with Gary got mad at Gary and just was furious and left the company and, you know, acted like a little spoiled brat. But see, I loved on him. You know, I said, you know, we're going to miss you. I hate it that you're leaving. I wish you would stay because I care about you and I love you. Now you're acting like a spoiled brat and you really shouldn't go, but I really care about you. Well, see, he stayed in touch with me all these years. He ended up buying a Prudential office, and his profit share was bigger than any of the profit he made in Prudential. And every time I talked to him, I'd say, well, darling, why don't you get rid of Prudential and come back with us? Well, he eventually sold his franchise because he wasn't making much money. And his profit share is just enormous.
Well, like I said, the coolest nickname I have ever heard, and I'm jealous that you have it. So I am.
It means you love them, and then you deal with it, and then you love them. I call it love, stick in the dagger, and then love on some more as the blood flows out.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so I'm going to open it up really quick. Really quick. We only have a couple minutes. Like I said, I really want to be.
It's 1:53, so we've got about 8 minutes.
So if anyone wants to, if you're on your computer, there's that little reactions button, and you can virtually raise your hand. If you have a question, I'm just going to go by whoever's quickest. So if you have a question, just hit that little virtually raise your hand, or if your computer's on, you can raise your hand and I'll see you. So if anybody has a question, go ahead.
Oh, Melissa got the Driscoll too. This is in the chat box. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Please, somebody ask me something. I love questions.
Patrick, go ahead.
Mo, when you were a young child, what was your big dream? What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a public school music teacher.
Oh, what instrument did you play?
Piano.
And do you still get to play?
Well, I played for Gary's band at family reunion, only I'm so terrible because I've got arthritic fingers and I make a lot of mistakes, but nobody seems to care. I just wear my dark glasses and my band around my head like a real rocker. They don't care. So I still play for his band. He says I have to.
There you go.
I'm just horrible. I make so many mistakes. But I used to be real good.
And you found
And
that.
when I first went to Austin, I would even play for like their office Christmas parties. You know, I'd go play. And somebody put a glass up on the piano, and I got tips.
And you were a music school teacher for a while, weren't you?
For 14 years I taught, and then Richard shoved me into real estate. And
Yeah, I heard that story.
It's in my book. All that's in my book.
Looks like Matthew has a question as well.
Matthew.
How are you? Hey there.
Where is Matthew? Wave at me. There you are. I can see
Yes,
you,
ma'am.
Matthew.
Hi there. Hey, so you were elected into the 2018 Oklahoma Hall of Fame for what?
For what? For building the largest real estate company, franchise company in the world.
Awesome.
We're helping to build it.
Well, thank you for your time today, man. I truly, truly appreciate it.
Do you really?
I absolutely do. It has been amazing. Thank
so
you.
idiotic that I can't believe anybody would appreciate anything.
I have. Thank you.
Oh, good.
No, we are all very, very thankful that you came. And I know that you said coming up in August, 63 years, your 63rd anniversary. So congratulations for that too. That is awesome.
It's a wonder he hadn't been killed by now. I'm sure he could say the same.
Well, thank you so much. We're running out of time. I know that our agents are going to get so much knowledge and inspiration from you, and we're also thankful that you could come out here and speak on the market center level to us. And I just can't express my gratefulness enough.
Oh, well, I just have loved being with you. So here's your hug. Receive my hug. Now keep going that way to receive
Everybody
it.
can get 7 hugs just like that.
Okay.
Do it
And
virtually.
then I love you so much, I'm going to throw you a kiss.
Mwah. Thank you so much, Mo. You have a great day and a great rest of your week.
Okay.
Have a
See
good
you
one.
later.
Bye.
Love you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. See ya.